Master Skywalker, there are too many of them. What are we going to do? Now I will be executed. For audio listeners, I pulled out a lightsaber that just stabbed myself. My lightsaber is also broken because it's from 1996. But hello there. Welcome back, people. Tanner, Alex, here together for another happy landing.
Bright and early in the morning.
We got lots to talk about. We're gonna get into all of it real quick before we do. Here on Movie Meals, we have merch. I'm gonna hold some of it up for y'all in the YouTube realms. Go get this merch. It's super comfy. And then thank you to our patrons, Steve and Kimberly, for being top tier patrons. You guys rock. Now we can get into it. Star Wars, another happy landing, episode 3. Episode 3. We're here, and the first thing we're going to talk about is all this ridiculous drama and stupidity by idiots over what was her name again?
Christina Ariel.
Who will be hosting a High Republic kind of series show, web show on YouTube, talking about all these dozens and dozens of books they're going to be giving us, which Tanner and I are just now going to start reading the first one. But Tanner, what are your thoughts on all this? The toxic fan base went after her. What do you think?
It's absolutely crazy to me. I mean, I personally didn't even think that what she said was that hot of a take. it just felt like, you're out there speaking your truth. Like, let's talk about this thing. And then the half the Star Wars fan base just comes out and starts to just absolutely lambast her. And it's like, what? I guess I always fall down with this whenever there's some sort of news story about the Star Wars fan base just being terrible in general. It's like, come on, be better to each other, be a better person. We don't need to be doing this. There's far more that unites us than divides us. So why do we need to be so terrible to each other? I don't get it.
Go ahead.
Even I mean, like, this is definitely one of those situations where it's like, this is not the moment to need it. When nonetheless, it's like, I mean, how volatile the Star Wars fan base can be when we're just talking about movies with each other. It's like, my God, do we really need to get this toxic to each other? It's insane.
Yeah. Look, if somebody calls out and says, look, white people are racist, and your response is, no, we're not, you are, you probably need to take a hard look in the mirror, because you clearly are an idiot who does not pay attention to history. And that I know it was trending. I stand with Christina was trending. I agree. I think we stand with her here. What she said is true. And Star Wars themselves, the official Star Wars Twitter page, tweeted in support of her. She was getting a lot of support. She tweeted a lot of the things people said to her. Just people sending her just the N-word, people DMing her and telling her she needs to get put into a coffin and the world doesn't need her. And that is horrible. You are a horrible human if you are saying that to another human who is out there living her dream, and just loving life. And to react that way about somebody's skin, you are the lowest of the low in humanity, and I got no place for you. Star Wars is no place for you, and you clearly don't know what the theme of Star Wars is if you are attacking somebody for something like that. You clearly have no idea. These nerds are racist, and yet their biggest fantasy would be for somebody to dress up like an alien, like Ahsoka. Like,
right.
Like, what is wrong with you? They're racist, and we don't need them. We don't need them. Uh, and
100%.
I hate those people. I hate them. Some of the things that she tweeted out that they said are horrible, and I'm not here for it.
I mean, it's complacency and privilege has got us to the point that we're at. So I mean,
Yeah,
you need to be able to have a long, hard look at yourself to say, hey, there's some things we need to fix.
yeah.
As simple as
They a
that.
hard look in the mirror.
Yeah.
Um, and then maybe put your head through it or something.
I,
But yeah, I don't
I'm
like it.
fully in support of Christina. Though I must admit, I need to talk. I wouldn't mind actually bringing this up. Like, I'm happy that the Star Wars. I'm happy that the Star Wars Twitter actually like came out in support of her. That was really important.
They got backlash for doing that though too.
They did get backlash for doing that. They also got backlash for when they posted their MLK post, or their
Yeah,
MLK post on MLK Day, which again, like I get the idea that they're trying to put it out there of like honoring the man that was MLK, but at the same time, sometimes it just feels to juxtaposition of the things that have happened. For instance, I mean, just the way that they treated treated, why am I blanking on his name, played Finn,
John Boyega.
John Boyega, the way they treated him, and I just had their names. I was just looking at this article. The girl that plays
Kelly Marie Tran is who you're thinking
Shirley
of.
Marie Tran, the way that they treated both of those individuals, I thought was incredibly poor. And like, I just hope that I'm glad that Star Wars came out in support of her. But man, they really need to have a long, hard look after the treatment of those two actors themselves to be able to really look at it and be like, oh, what is honest to God inclusivity actually going to look like?
Yeah. And yeah, Disney met with John. I don't remember if the article mentioned Kelly, but met with John and had a long talk with him about what happened.
Yeah,
And I know he came out and was talking how good that was. And I am glad Star Wars tweeted. I understand the frustration. There was a lot of frustration with where was this? A lot of people who support Gina Carano, where was this when she was getting attacked? But then there was also, she said a lot of different things. She was talking about how the virus isn't, or liking tweets about the virus not being real, about the riots, about just different things in the political world. But I, and this is coming from a place of two white guys talking here, but I think the start and small change is still important at the end of the day. I think them starting to make that change and now starting to more publicly come out on this stuff is good in the long run, even if it is missed or lacked at times. I think that we're starting to see it more, and I think and I hope we continue to see it more and more and more for the long run.
right.
Um, if anything, thank you in a way to the trolls. I had no idea this was going to be a show. I had no idea that this. I dove into Christina Ariel's, excuse me, like her background in Star Wars and like what she's been doing as like hosts on different shows. And this is a smart, beautiful, talented woman who's getting a woman of color who's getting her shot at following her dreams. And now I'm following her on Twitter because I love her takes. I want to watch the show. I didn't know they were doing this show. And we are just starting to read the books. Now I'm super excited to read the books and to hear what the authors have said with her as a host. So in a weird way, this helped me discover who she was, which has made me excited. Now I can go and back her up and not only stand with her, but really support her, watch her stuff. Because now I'm jazzed for it. Now it's like, man, I got to hurry up and get through this whole book if
Right.
they're gonna be doing this show here in a week. So, she seems like she is a rock star, and I'm here for it.
I agree. I completely agree. I'm really excited, not only to be able to read the books as we go along, but also actually watch that show.
Yeah,
I am wildly curious as to the things that they'll be bringing up in that we'll probably end
me
up
too.
covering in the show.
Amen to that. And if you were, we get small views here on the movie meals. If you are one of those awful Star Wars fans, we don't need you. I'd rather have 0 views than have 100 of those horrible people. So get out of here.
I agree.
Um, but let's transition into that, talking about Star Wars, Disney as a whole, because I know one of the things we talked about in episode 1 when we started to touch on the Investors Day was Kathy Kennedy as the head, kind of the way Lucasfilm has gone since George left, and where we think that it would like to go. There's rumors about maybe they're retconning the sequel trilogy and they're going to throw that into Legends.
Right.
So let's just kind of start, I guess, with Kathy. Her contract ends this September, I believe, which gives her most of the year. But what do you think about where we're going? Because they have made some big changes.
Yeah.
And what would you like to see again, Tanner, from Lucasfilm? What
So
she's done.
uh I'm happy that it seems as though we are going in a definitely with a new direction with that seems as though that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni seem to be at the head of this. Now I was excited to see that Kathleen Kennedy was initially the announcement to be at the head of Lucasfilm way back when it happened, just because of knowing the track record and things that Kathleen Kennedy had been involved with. I thought, oh man, like I think there are some really cool things that might actually be coming out from this. And unfortunately, my overall take is that she's handled it kind of poorly. And been very reactionary when it comes to things. For instance, I mean, there was the backlash that happened with The Last Jedi, whether you like the movie or not.
Yeah,
There was the fan base part of the fan base had a backlash to it, and then Kathleen Kennedy attempted to overcorrect the situation,
I agree
and
completely.
we get the train wreck that is the Rise of Skywalker. Uh, and I think that just poorly speaks to the idea of like there was no real plan going through the 3 movies. I think what they wanted to do was they wanted to bring in these cool different directors that were going to tell these different and interesting stories, which again, I like that idea. Rian Johnson, I personally think, is an incredible director. With him directing
Looper.
uh, he directed Looper. I forgot about
Yeah,
that. That's so funny.
yeah. Looper.
But I was actually thinking of Knives Out. Is
Knives
honestly
Out.
one of my favorite films I've watched in a long time. Uh, and he is just a great filmmaker. I wasn't the biggest fan of The Last Jedi, but man, it's like I like the idea that they're bringing in all of these different and interesting people to look at this. However, that when you have no through line between all 3 of your stories, that winds up being a massive problem. But that's my take. I've got more. I'd like to hear yours, Alex.
I think Kathy should step down, and I think when she steps down in the business of Hollywood, she is actually leaving on top. I think when she leaves, she's going, look, critics be gone. As a film producer, my job is to make this company money. And I
Right.
did that with every movie but Solo. It's the only miss I really had. I have movies people didn't like, but they made a lot of money. I have movies people love and think are all time classics, and they made a lot of money. So she is going out on top. There's no way she's not going to continue in Hollywood. And I stand by it. She is one of the best film producers we have had ever. I mean, she had her hands on Jurassic Park, Back to the Future, Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean, she has worked. There's a reason George only sold it to Disney if she was in charge. George trusted her. Whether George feels differently now is him, but he trusted her. He had worked with her for a long time on a lot of great, great projects. Um, I think it is time for her to step down. I think Dave and John would do a great job running the show. Uh, I think I think Kevin Feige can handle both if he took over Lucasfilm and Marvel. I think he has gotten so good at the game that he can do both easily. Um, and I think if they bring in somebody new, it would just depend on whoever it is.
Yeah.
I think moving Alan Horn from Pixar's creative head to all of film creative head is a good call. He does nothing but rock it as the big boss of Pixar. I mean, pumping out movies like Soul, Coco, Frozen, Frozen 2. I mean, all of these are all him with his hands all over it. I don't love new Bob. That's what I call him. As much as I liked Bob Iger, I thought Big Bob Iger was actually doing a pretty good job when it came down to what Disney really means, what Walt's legacy was going to be with children and everything. I don't love Big Bob's plans as much. I think he's a little too money sided
Yeah.
than Iger, because Iger admitted mistakes. He admitted I made the decision on Solo being not in December. I realized that was a problem, especially because he put it out a week or two after Endgame, like an idiot. But I haven't seen enough for Big Bob because of the pandemic and what he's going to do. But John and Dave would be good as the new heads. Here's the big rumor that everybody's talked about. There is a thought and a rumor that Lucas is going to come back as the head after Kathleen Kennedy. And that's how the retconning is going to happen. That they're already in place with some of the stuff John and Dave have put in The Mandalorian to retcon and make the sequel trilogy in the expanded universe a side story, a what if story. And then Lucas is going to not only become the head of his company again, but then he is going to direct his original 3 movies back to back to back, which would be interesting because the reports is that he would still have Grumpy Luke and a girl would be the new kind of protagonist. It was supposed to be a girl named Kira, and then they moved Kira's name to Solo and then made it Rey. But those are the 2 big beats I know that he wanted. But
quick side note, real quick, particularly when you brought up Rey. I know someone.
Yeah.
I was on the Star Wars subreddit the other day and saw someone like bashing on Rey. Then I saw another like appreciation post of like, maybe the writing for Rey's character wasn't actually that great, but can we like give it up for Daisy Ridley? Really giving her like 100% to the role.
She's a class act.
Yeah, 100%. And I honestly think that everyone on that, all of our main characters on that, just they they weren't given much to work with, but man, like what they had, they did their 100. They gave it their all when it came to their performances.
Yeah, and
I love that.
I really think I do believe, I do agree with the sentiment that Finn's writing from 7 to 8, the big injury he sustained is kind of taken as a joke, but he does get more to do. He gets his own side quest, his own love interest. It's off of Rey in the movie. Whether I love the way the love I don't love the way the love is handled in Last Jedi. And I was never necessarily for the 2 of them being the love interests in the show, Finn and Rey. Okay. Honestly, I liked Finn and Poe more than anything else if they were going to actually have some balls and do that. But I was also I really like the idea of no love interest. And I was a bit bummed that Kathy kind of pushed that they needed one. And but I think Finn is still gets gets some dues in Last Jedi. He learns more about the rebellion. His whole kind of arc in the first one is I just want to leave. I just want to leave. I'm going to stay for Rey. And then I think really in the sequel, he learns, no, this is actually bigger than myself. It's bigger than Rey. This is the galaxy in peril. I think Daisy is written incredibly in both the first two movies. I love the idea of her being no one. I think it is completely ruined in 9. I think all of her great writing is ruined in 9. I also think that with Poe. I think Ryan did a wonderful job writing everybody. I think the biggest take is Luke, obviously. I think that is where most people have a problem is with Luke. I just don't, but I think that's where whenever I hear people talk about Last Jedi, it's always Luke. And then it's Canto Bite. And I agree with Canto Bite. So it comes down, I think, really to Luke. But I think Daisy is a class act. I think there was a report years ago that she ran into Colin Trevorrow at like an award show or something, and she walked up to him and just said, like, I'm really excited for you to be doing this last one. I haven't seen scripts yet, like was just asking kind of questions, when are we getting there? And he said to her, would you like to know how your character ends? And she said, yes, I would. And the report was that she was over the moon with how it was going to end in Duel of the Fates for her. Which if I remember correctly, believe she does the same thing. She sacrifices herself, but the opposite. She sacrificed herself for Kylo. Is if I remember correctly. I could be completely wrong.
I think you're correct.
Doing the same kind of force heal. And that she burst into tears loving that after hearing kind of the build up towards it and then what happened. I also, on a script basis, I like what I have seen from Duel of the Fates more than I like what we got in Rise of Skywalker. It could have been a bad movie. A lot changes from script to final product, but I like that story more.
I wouldn't mind us actually like getting a hold of that and kind of.
We should do a deep dive on it. We should.
Yeah,
that'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
Next episode, my guy, we got it.
Heck yes! Heck yes!
I think it was a film pundit by the name of Robert Meyer Burnett who dropped it first. Mm-hmm. And I know I've followed him for a long time. He worked on Collider when they were still kind of doing things I really liked watching for a long time. And he was a reader in Hollywood. For those that don't know, a reader in Hollywood basically was a writer for a while, but then kind of gets a reputation of this guy knows his stuff. And people give him scripts to read to just kind of get an idea. You know, it's the same as like a test screening, really. And he has worked with Colin before, and he is friends with Colin Trevorrow, and Colin gave him that. And the rumor is gave him permission to make a video on it since he does YouTube stuff. Because he wanted to get the narrative out there that, look, I was supposed to make a cool idea movie. Yeah. And he did a huge deep dive. He did a 2-part deep dive into it of everything that was supposed to be in this script, or allegedly in this script that he read. I love the idea of Duel of the Fates as the title. I love the idea of Finn going from learning that people matter in the first one, that it's not all about him, to the galaxy matters, to then leading the poor and the weak in an uprise to fight back. I love his arc almost more than anybody else's for Duel of the Fates. Go ahead.
I'm just so bummed that when you really kind of boil down Finn's character, he really winds up just being this dude running around from scene to scene yelling Rey.
On space horses. He does it twice.
Yeah.
He does it twice.
I mean, like, he does it a little bit in Last Jedi, but not much.
He learns that it's not all about Rey. That Rey is an incredible friend, and he loves her, whether that's romantic or not.
Right.
But he learns that this is about a lot more than that. Rose teaches him that. And I actually really like Kelly Marie Tran's Rose. I don't necessarily like how how the love story is utilized, but she is a great actress, and her getting thrown away in Rise of Skywalker after JJ making a big deal about it at Celebration is a travesty. A
Yeah.
travesty.
No, I hate to I kind of have to lay that one not only at the executives at Disney for their reactionary course turn of like, oh, we need to change this, and also JJ as well, because we with the backlash and terrible things that were said about her, we should have they really should have taken the opposite stance to really show them, yo, no, we're backing her because she is a great talent and we do love her and we stand for inclusivity. So let's keep her in here and give her a good part. But instead, they just decided to make her be like, nope, you guys go on your adventure. I've got things to do here. Bye.
Yeah. And I think with Kathy, the reactionary thing is so fair. And yes, they needed a through line. They needed a story from start to finish. They needed a legit treatment. They
Yeah.
didn't have it. You can still get something great from not doing that. I really do believe, could have really stuck the landing if they make Duel of the Fates and let's just pretend it's great and it ends up being an amazing ending. It is a great compliment to the first two. It pushes the character progression and development forward. They, I think, end with, even if people don't like the middle, people will forgive a middle if they get a great ending. It
Right.
is, and anybody who denies it is so wrong. And I know they're wrong because nobody thinks about the middle if the end is great. You don't care anymore. If Luke gets awesome Force Ghost stuff in 9, you do not care how he was treated in 8. And I think her reactionary problem, DC had this problem forever, and I know it frustrated me, but Kyle, as such a massive DC fan, drove him nuts for years. They were so reactionary, and they still kind of are,
Oh,
with
100%.
the things that they were doing. I mean, it was if one fan complained about this or that, they changed it. And Rise of Skywalker, like, it feels like Kathy and JJ sat down, went on Reddit, and found the nerdiest nerd in the basement they could find and took everything he complains that he didn't get in episode 8 and threw it into Ep 9.
Yeah.
And when we finally do this, and again, here on Another Happy Landing, we are planning to watch everything in chronological order and make that each an episode to talk about. And when we get to the sequel trilogy, I like, those discussions are going to be awesome because they're going to be intense. They're going to be really fun. I can't wait for them. I don't really want to rewatch episode 9, but I can't wait for it. For the discussion. But
well, hopefully by the time that actually gets to that point, maybe we can actually plan out watching it like in person with each other, and then we could like jot
that
stuff
would be
down.
fun.
Oh man, and then do a live podcast. That'd
Jot stuff down. We should just scream at the TV about it. And to Kathy's credit, and I said this on another episode, I'm going to repeat this till I die. One of the best things Kathy did was associate Star Wars with Christmas. I will die on that sword. I think she did a great decision doing that, and I'm glad that they only attempted one movie not in Christmas. And again, I actually have a good time with Solo. I think Solo is fun. I really think they've missed out of. I think she's batting. So we have the trilogy and then the 2 others. We won't count Mando. We'll just count the movies, right? So they've got the trilogy, Rogue One, and Solo.
Yeah.
I think episode 7, 8, and Rogue One are home runs. I love all 3 of them myself. I think they're home runs. I think Solo is like a hit to second base. I enjoy it. It didn't get me home, but it wasn't first base. And then I think Rise of Skywalker was, I got pegged in the head with the ball and I'm unconscious on the floor. But I'll take that. That's good batting average for me.
I guess they're batting. Maybe for me, the batting average isn't great because I think the 2 that I walked away from being like, I love these movies was, obviously Force Awakens and the excitement that happened around that. It was such a good building block. Rogue One, loved. I have some minor gripes of that one. That I think the pacing sometimes is a little too quick.
Yeah,
But and also, I mean, not to mention, it's like we get a little character development and a lot of characters thrown in. It's almost like we get the Hobbit treatment of like there are so many characters that are slapped in here. We can't
it's
get
funny.
all of
Go
them.
ahead, finish. Yeah,
We can't get all of them like their fair treatment. And unfortunately, I feel like Rogue One kind of suffers from that. But it's such a fun just romp through the galaxy of following along with the rebellion. And then that the final fight scene in Rogue One has got to be one of my favorite space battles I have
I
ever
love it.
seen. Ground battles. Oh,
I love
man.
when Admiral Radish shows up. And I do wish they would have made him Akbar, because that was the big they talked about how it was originally going to be him, and they decided not to, just because they didn't want all fan backlash or something. But I really liked Admiral Radish. I love it when he pops in and he's swimming or swinging back and forth on this giant dome. He's not seeing anything. He's seeing maybe some ships fly by shooting at each other, but he's really
Right.
not looking at much. But let me it cuts from Jin yelling at him on the planet. He swings over and he looks down as if he can see her. He's just like, we gotta take out the shield. I just love it. I love it. I think Gareth Edwards did a really good job with that movie. And
Yeah.
even though he played ball and Kathy was reactionary with him, and we'll get into that in Solo. That Solo will be a really fun discussion when we watch it, because we'll watch it and then talk about all the drama that was Solo, a Star Wars story.
That was my other one. Is for me that like Solo was just a really lazy bunt to me.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong. Like any Star Wars movie, I think it's got its great moments, but there was some, I don't know. I thought there was some moments that really just kind of weakened Solo as a character. They kind of bummed me out. Also, but I mean like I love the actor that portrayed Solo.
Alden
Ehrenreich killed it. I absolutely.
I agree. I think all the performances are really good.
I honestly would love to see him as more Solo. If we decided to do something like that, I would also love to see not Childish Gambino.
Donald Glover.
Donald Glover. I'd love to see Donald Glover coming in as Lando again.
Yeah.
And I mean, here's hoping that we actually get him to play Lando in the series.
Yeah. So let's kind of gear back here, because you and I love to get going. So let's talk about this retcon idea, and this idea that George might come back and direct his original treatment. If they were to do it, let's say Kathy steps down, Johnny Favs comes up and has a big press conference or something and says, look, we are retconning, he's got to do it that way. If they ever do it, they have to actually publicly just say, look, we have decided that those stories were not what we really thought they could have been, and we're going to try again with George Lucas coming back to direct his original 3. He wants to do it. We want him to do it. How would you feel if that happened?
The young fanboy in me would be elated. The other side of me is I really hope that there are other creative people that are around Lucas that can rein him in, because as a little bit of like a post-mortem from the prequel series is there were way too many yes men that were around him. He would throw out these just absolutely like crazy ideas, and nobody was really there telling him like, I don't really think that's a great idea, George. Maybe we should do something different. It was just a lot of people going like, good idea. And you need someone to be able to, I understand that everyone's going to look at him and be like, oh my God, this is the dude that literally helped create my childhood. And you gotta be able to rein that in though. You know what I mean? And George is the dude that I think could actually go through and do that. And my one thing that I will say that I like that idea but I don't think that he's going to come in and do it. Just because he's getting up there in age at this point. And I don't know if he personally thinks that well, one, he probably doesn't want to do that because he's just enjoying the cush life with his making movies for his family. And two, he's probably has that realization of like, well, I mean, I'm getting up there. I don't know if I can last for and make it for what? How like
He's
anywhere between
76 years old.
yeah. He's up there. He's up there.
To be honest, though, I don't think he looks like he's aged a day since like the early 2000s. When you see him on like he was on the Game of Thrones season 8 set, he was on the Mando set in the documentary, and I really don't think he's aged a day. Like he looks like he is still kicking it from 2002. I was just curious. I looked up his net worth because sometimes it's like I sat back the other day and I was like, George Lucas is never talked about as one of the richest men on the planet, but Disney gave him $4 billion for Lucasfilm. And I know I don't, that's not how it works, but his net worth is $5.6 billion.
Oh my God.
If he came back, it would be extremely bittersweet for me if they retcon this and decide to go with it. Or that it's like fans decide what's your trilogy. It would
Sure.
it would be very bittersweet. It'd be very much how I feel right now about my beloved Philadelphia Eagles firing Dougie P. Because I would love to see his story finished. He always had the idea for 9 movies.
Yeah.
And when he decided to spend time with his family, things change. His kids have grown up a lot more now. And you wonder what those conversations with him at home, at Skywalker Ranch are with his wife and his kids when they visit at Christmas. It's like, oh, there's another big Star Wars movie, Dad. Like, what did you think of it? Like, like if George was my dad, unless he has specifically said never bring up Star Wars to me, I would want his take on the new movies all the time. Like the fact that hasn't, I mean, it's come out what he's thought. And he didn't even go to the premiere of episode 9.
That shows a lot to what he thought about it.
Yeah, he only has publicly come out and said he thought Last Jedi was very well done and really enjoyed it. He did not enjoy 7, didn't go to 9. Rogue One, I believe he had positive things about, and I think he had positive things about Solo. But I think it was more of like they did a good job being the young versions. Like I think it was just along those lines.
Right.
But if he is sitting at home going, look, what is my legacy going to be? What if the conversation at home is have I given up? Did I give up when I shouldn't have? Should I have finished my story the way I should have? And if the plan is for Kathy to step down, John and Dave to go in, and they want him to come back and make his trilogy, and he wants to, and they just do it back to back to back, one big movie, it's going to be another 2 years of his life, 2-3 years to do all those movies, and they do it. I'm all for it.
The logistics for that, oh my God.
I'd be here for it. I would be absolutely giddy to see his trilogy. I would be upset if he with the sequels. I really love 7 and 8, and they would only retcon those, I believe. They wouldn't retcon Rogue One or Solo. Those would be canon. Those would stay. Those wouldn't be extended. I don't think they're going to say everything Kathy has touched is now suddenly gone, because then you've lost Mandalorian, unless you specifically point out that Mandalorian isn't, and then you're just telling Kathy she's awful, like at that point.
Right.
And I don't think they'll do that. I think they really like Kathy over there. But here's the interesting thing. If George has this treatment and they do this, let's say they do this, what if he goes to we'll assume Mark and Han come back, because they're going to be there in somehow. If he walks up and says to Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, and our boy, why can't I think of my turn to forget a name? Why can't I think of Poe's actor?
Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Isaac. If he came up to him and said, look, My lead is also a young girl. You're about the same perfect age, still Daisy. Like, it's not like you've gotten too old for this role. I would like you three to come back and be the big three I had for my new one. I would like you guys to be the character, the actors to perform this. And they all agree. And they're like, look, now we're going to be in both. But I mean, that is another. I mean, if they film back to back to back, which I think is the only way George would do it, is not taking years off. I think they would be inclined to come back if he asked. If they didn't do it back to back to back, and George is going to be doing this into his 80s, I think.
Do you even if they only did it for 2 or 3 years, do you think that they would come back and do it? Because I know
if
some
it's
of them.
George, I think it's hard to pass
I
up
know,
George.
but it's with some of the interviews and like the post-mortem that they've done on Star Wars, talking about like there were good moments, but holy crap, there was a lot of bad moments in
Yeah, I
uh
think.
behind the scenes.
Steven Spielberg is still directing movies at 74. I think George is fine directing movies if he wanted to again. Um, I if if I'm Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, or Oscar Isaac, and George comes up to me and says, "Look, John and Dave are the new heads of Lucasfilm. It is
Mhm.
not Kathy Kennedy. They have been nothing but inclusive with me on Mandalorian, and by that time, Ahsoka and all these other shows have come out. Um, they're in charge. We're in charge. There's no Kathy. This is the through line. John, we're not putting you to the side. You are straight out. Honestly, throw Kelly in there too. I want Kelly back. And if they all say that, and it's like, look, this is our treatment. You have the full scripts here, or we're going to get you the full scripts before you have to sign on. And if you want to come back and be in Star Wars a second time in this real trilogy that they're
Right.
making, official new trilogy, I don't know how you pass that up when George is the one coming.
I think
Uh,
John might, considering how big of a
of
Star Wars
anybody,
fan he
yeah.
is. Um, Daisy, that's a hard maybe, but I don't think Oscar Isaac does at all. Uh, I think he's got way too many other projects and other things that he's done, and Star Wars left such a bad taste in his mouth that he was like, "Nah, I'm out."
Well, you
And
say that until we get 3 years down the road and George comes out with these scripts and their movies haven't done very well and they want that Disney dump truck backing up, dumping that cash. You know, that's how they get Harrison Ford
right.
every time. Harrison's like, I'm done. They finally killed me. There's no way I could come back. And then JJ's like, oh, I got a dump truck full of cash. Says you can, bud.
I don't.
They back it up.
If there's anyone that doesn't come back, Harrison's the one. My God, he will not come back.
Yeah.
uh, oh, but
It would be
there was another one.
bittersweet, though.
Oh, you know what? You know something? This is a little something that I would really actually like to see from that new trilogy. Is I genuinely want the stakes to feel like a galactic conflict. Don't get me like the whole like small resistance, and it's very like classic Star Wars of like the small resistance fighting against the big guy. That's cool, but man, I've always wanted to see like an honest to God pitched battle between like the New Republic at like as it started to rise from prominence, as it's like rivaling against the old and new empire. Oh man, I would absolutely love that.
Yeah. I wonder too if everything is pointing towards Dave or John or both taking over as head of Lucasfilm. Um,
Is
if
that
that is
creative?
going to happen,
Real quick, is that that's creative head at Lucasfilm, correct?
that would be the head of Lucasfilm. That would be the only boss like Kathy's boss is Alan Horn and Big Bob. Like
Do you
those
think that
those are her bosses.
you think John and Dave would actually be willing to take that, because they would come across way more as creatives to me than
Well,
you know.
Kathy's involved in the creative, but I think what she has done as a producer is not like as active. She gets the people around her and then says, look, these are the main themes. It's the same thing Kevin does. Kevin
Yeah.
is just such a nerd that Kevin is like, no, look, like in comic number 95, they did this, and I really want that put in here. And then Chris McQuarrie and his buddy and his brother, or whatever, like, oh yeah, I love that, and they're like writing it in, it's a nerd fest. And I think if Dave took it over, I think it would work, because I think I would prefer at this point Dave over John, because it would be tough to lose John as a director all the time.
I agree with that.
And I know Dave is starting to get into it more, but I think he could manage both a lot easier, because he's not as from that. But or if they are just involved in the new hiring process. But let's assume it's going to be those two. I think if it is, they already know they're taking over. I think by this point, they know that they've been asked, look, when Kathy's contract expires, we would like you to take over. Kathy's probably involved in those discussions, and that a lot of these decisions have already been made because they know that this is what they want moving forward. Like, John and Dave might have said, yes, we'll take the job, or Dave's or John, just one of them saying, yes, I'll take the job. But here's what I want to do moving forward with a show about the High Republic or an Ahsoka show. Right. And then Kathy saying, I also have this idea of a Squadrons movie, and I was thinking of Patty Jenkins. And then they go, oh, it's a wonderful idea. Let's go do that. And I think it's starting to become a little more collaborative. And it was my one bummer about the documentary they did for Mandalorian Season 2, because what I loved about the first one is it was more of a round table talk. And this one's an actual documentary. And I liked hearing the little snippets Kathy said to the other heads about things. And I love, because there's a couple of moments where John and Dave are kind of like, yeah, Kathy. And then they keep kind of nerding out. And I love it. But I wish I was excited to hopefully see more of that and see more of Kathy kind of talking about the next regime. And I wonder if they didn't do that because they knew it was coming up. But anyway, what do you think? Do you think there's the successors in place? I think the successors got to be in place.
100. I think they've got.
Unless it's George.
Plans
because it's going to take George some convincing.
I think they've got plans on plans. Who's going to be next? Who they want to be? Any backups that they have in place like that? There's no doubt in my mind that they have like an entire succession order of who's going to be taking what position, or is starting off with who they'd like. Sorry, go for it.
No, yeah, I'm with you. I think like a list, it's like we'll just take whoever we can get first.
Right.
Is probably how they're doing. But I was going to ask, do you remember there were rumors after episode 8 when Solo came out that there was a rumor that when they fired John or Colin Trevorrow, because they didn't announce right away it was going to be JJ, and there was a rumor that it was going to be George, and that they were bringing George in to wrap that new trilogy up, that he had an idea. Do you remember those rumors, and what did you think about it back then?
I do remember those rumors, and I have kind of the same response now that I did then, of like, I'm really excited to do it, but man, I hope that he's able to handle that situation. Because I mean, we did get George making a lot of like creative influences into a lot of like the TV shows such as like Clone Wars and I believe Rebels as well. And so I mean,
Clone Wars was his baby.
Yes, absolutely. It's just, I don't know, maybe unfortunately, like I love the prequels, but I also understand there's a lot of problems with the prequels, and that with the free range, that just it concerns me. But I would just love he's the dude that made Star Wars. Come on now. Yeah. I really hope he'd be able to come in and just deliver a couple of solid bangers, you know?
And one of the things he is not the best at really is that he's just not he's a great storyteller. He's just not, and I think a very good writer, but he is just not the best director of actors. When you hear like all the direction they got, like I think Luke or Mark Hamill got one piece of direction in all of the first three movies. Like, and like one of the few things that he directed Carrie Fisher about was the fact there's no bras in space. Like, like being, it sounded like a creepy man there, but and that, and if he, here's the other thing. If they announce George is taking over as the new head of Lucasfilm again, he's taking it back, and he's the head, and then he's going to hire a director to retcon the trilogy, and he's going to work closely with them like he did with 5 and 6. That would excite me even more. A part of me will always be excited if George comes back. You can't not. I don't think you're a fan if there's not a part of you that doesn't get pumped for George Lucas coming back. If they do it, I hope he finally convinced Spielberg to direct one. It's what I've wanted more than anything ever, for Spielberg to direct one. It would be so crazy. Imagine this, Tanner. Imagine if George becomes the head and he says, here's what we're doing. Here's my treatment. I'm going to be the producer. You are going to do some of the things I want. I will subside like I did on 5 and 6, and I want you to be a part of the conversation. And what if he brings JJ, Ryan, all the actors, and then Colin, and he gets the original guy, and he says, you're my directors. Here's my treatment. All of you get a new shot at this. Here's the dump truck filled with money. You can't say no. I don't even know how I would feel if they did that. If everybody agreed to come back, but now George was in charge, and it was George's story, I don't know how I'd feel. I feel like I'd be excited, but also very confused.
I'm excited for that idea, and I'm excited for redemption. I would be excited for redemption of that. On the flip side of that, I also really want to get some just new and different directors in there that could and
yeah.
I don't want to deny anybody their redemption, especially when it comes to how the sequel trilogies were handled. But at the same time, there are some other people out there that I think have been dying to get into the director's seat for a Star Wars movie that would just do excellent work.
Taika Waititi.
I'm stoked for that one.
Like Taika Waititi.
There was another thing that I, in my deep dive that I was doing for the High Republic of just like research of like what to watch. I watched their big like hour-long live stream that they like launch event that they had. I come to find out that they talked about like they brought this it must have been about like 12 to 14 different writers into a room. They were using it. They literally talked about it as an incubation area to like talk about ideas for Star Wars, which got me thinking that they're using Star Wars: The High Republic as like a new breeding ground for stories and story ideas, not only in that timeline for the High Republic, but also for just Star Wars as a whole in interesting stories to tell. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that?
I love that.
Yeah.
Because that's what I think everybody's wanted, is not the Skywalker saga. People got super annoyed at the toxicity once Episode 8 came out. We're done with Skywalkers. What was cool about Rogue One is there wasn't any Skywalkers. Rogue One, a lot of people say, is the best of any of the new movies. I love it. I love doing High Republic. It does not feel like a Kathy move. It feels like whoever is already in charge or knows they're going to be in charge, or John and Dave have said, look, this is really the direction to go. Yeah. I don't think Kathy is the creative head who just suddenly decided, let's go with High Republic as the main point at all. And maybe it's Kevin who came in and said, look, this is where you need to go from now on. We need to get away from the sequel trilogy. You had the good point of them at the park slowly starting to change things away from the new trilogy and making it more original trilogy, which is smart. Right. And I think it's a really good idea. I think we can get a brand new, really cool story in High Republic. And I would love to get some unique filmmakers involved in movies. I'm going to just say movies. Because I remember the thing that always got me the most excited over anything when Kathy had that first kind of big thing. And when she announced not John and Dave, but Dave and Dan were going to be doing a Star Wars trilogy, and the idea was always that it was going to be High Republic because it just made too much sense for them because this was right after season 6 and when they got hired with Battle of the Bastards. Like the
Right.
idea of Battle of the Bastards where we get like I remember being like, man, I would love if they brought over Kit Harington to be a young Jedi. I don't want like not a Padawan, he's a Jedi going on missions. There's
Yeah.
armies of Sith and Jedi at this time from what Legends has given us. I would love a Battle of the Bastards style story in a
Oh yeah.
movie with lightsabers. Like that was always my biggest thing. I still support that idea of them doing it. I even after 8, I said, look, people, I understand. It's so crazy because it's the opposite. I get the ending stunk, but they still gave us great, a
Yeah.
lot of great. And it's funny with that now the sequel trilogy, it's the opposite. It's like, well, the ending sucked. And but JJ did give us a great movie. Even if he copied episode 4, I really do like the episode 7. I love episode 7.
Right.
But I still would be on board if they came back to do something in Star Wars. Because they are huge Star Wars nerds. I would be massively on board with that. Real quick, it's funny, if you're listening or watching and there's a little jolt, we had kind of a tech issue here. And as we were getting back into everything, we off air, we were like, man, we should probably wrap up the show. And now we're getting into it again. But is there a couple quick guys, filmmakers, you wouldn't mind taking the reins of a High Republic, let's say movie, show? I know they're giving us the show. But let's just say movie or show. Somebody to get their hands on a High Republic story, whether it's a trilogy or show or something.
I know. Gosh, there's one that I'm thinking of because I think you could do something really just out there for Star Wars, and I would love to see Tarantino take a crack at Star Wars.
I don't know if he can rein it in though, man. They're never gonna greenlight an R-rated Star Wars movie.
Oh man, he's doing. I don't know if the talks actually fell apart for this one, but I remember
Star Trek.
The Star Trek movie. He was talking about doing, and like I know it would never get greenlit or anything like that, but man, if we got like an R-rated Star Wars movie to somehow get through,
he wrote a Star Trek script.
Oh, no kidding.
I believe he wrote a script or he wrote like a deep treatment, presented it. Yeah. They said no. They were like long talks. Everybody would love it. An R-rated Star Trek would be insane. And maybe his isn't R-rated. Maybe he just wrote something that's just a little bit more intense or different. And they were like, no, this isn't what we want. We're going to stick with the people we have. But I'd love it. I mean, a Tarantino Star Wars movie would be amazing. I would really love an Aaron Sorkin script in Star Wars.
Ooh,
I think you could get deep into the politics of old council stuff, which would be really cool. Dan and Dave, I wouldn't mind coming back. If we're talking just directors, I would love to see from Game of Thrones, Sapochnik get a shot at Star Wars because he's the one who directed Hard Home, Battle of the Bastards.
Oh, yes.
Because, if you're not going to get Dan and Dave to write it, he can say, look, get me a writer to get me that style battle, and I will direct the heck out of that. Right. Because he has directed the greatest battle sequence ever. I think it's better than Lord of the Rings. I think it is the best battle sequence we have ever had that he has given us from Battle of the Bastards. I would love him to take over. And I think he just did a movie with Netflix. I think he finally did like an action movie. Well, you say your thing, and I'm gonna look that up.
I wouldn't mind actually seeing Simon Pegg come in and do some.
That'd be interesting.
Do a little bit of directing for that one.
He wrote the last Star Trek, right? Or did he direct it too? I know he wrote it.
I think he wrote that one. He also came out and was like pretty upset about that whole situation as well because they kind of butchered his script quite a bit. Because he came in way more from this like Trekkie style idea, and they turned that movie way more into like this over the top action movie with a dirt bike just randomly there for no particular reason. Man, I'd have to I'm gonna have to really kind of think about this because I'm only firing from the hip when it comes to like some directors that I'd really like to see do this.
Real quick, Sapochnik has not done a big movie, but he did 6 episodes of Game of Thrones. He is going to do episodes on House of Dragons. He has episodes of Altered Carbon, which is a show people love. He did
Oh
one
yeah, yeah.
episode of Iron Fist, which is not good. Masters of Sex, he directed an episode. He directed an episode of True Detective from
Ooh,
the second season, I think that looks like.
never did watch the
Um,
second season of that one.
yeah, but I would love him to come in.
I think we should definitely revisit this question of either like
Storytellers we'd like.
yeah, like directors that we would really like to come in and see because like I have like three at the tip of my tongue that I just can't remember right now.
Yeah.
Oh man, if we who was it who was it that came in and directed the Russos?
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
dude, the Russos.
That was always
God.
the rumor when Kevin first announced when it was announced that he was going to produce a Star Wars movie, one Star Wars movie that everybody thought, well, he just needs to bring the Avengers team over. The Russos and why can't it's Chris McQuarrie, right? He was one of the writers of the last few Avenger movies, and then there's another guy.
Oh god, I don't remember.
I'm gonna look it up real quick because
Considering
I would
how I've
love
been
them.
considering how I've been butchering actors' names, I really need to brush up on some of
So
that.
it was Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely
Oh,
are the writers, and they've written they wrote the screenplay, but they did all of the Captain Americas and then Infinity War and Endgame, and they're big nerds. If they brought them over for one movie, hopefully a trilogy, if they brought that team over, I'd
yeah.
lose it because the Russos have been asked over and over at Comic-Con, would you ever do Star Wars? And they're like, dude, we're huge Star Wars fans. We would love to do Star Wars. Like anytime you hear a guy is in Marvel and they're a big Marvel nerd, you know that they are a bigger Star Wars nerd. You just
Oh,
know they are.
100%.
Somebody I would be happy about, but I actually don't want is James Gunn from Marvel because I have seen his space movie and I don't want him to just do, and I'm nervous of this with Suicide Squad. I am nervous we're going to get the same thing, the same goofy characters, the same goofy lead, and I don't want that in and the reason I don't want it in Star Wars is because I already have it in Guardians of the Galaxy. I would want him to do something a lot different if he did Star Wars because I'd be happy with it, but I would be a lot more hesitant than like a Spielberg announced or the
Oh,
Russos.
see, I'm the opposite on that one. I am such a like I with James Gunn and the work that he's done with Guardians of the Galaxy. Not only did I mean he made two incredible space romps with Guardians.
He made a great one and a good one. I don't like
It
Guardians
was
2 very
two. It
much.
was two really good ones. It was two really good ones.
It's too jokey.
It was oh gosh, but like Yondu, the some of those great moments that we
Like
get
those
through,
moments.
it's it. But that's the thing is it's like number two. I mean, let's be honest. Like both of them are over the top, but they're superhero movies, and I think that James Gunn could bring in some of those like I want some of those James Gunn jokey moments, but
I
I don't
want him
want to.
reined in.
I don't want to take into 11. I do like because the second one goes really over the top
I agree.
with Ego.
Drax and
It,
Ego. Drax
it's
goes from like a cool character to a dumb character to me.
I
I can't.
love him.
I
Love him.
can't stand. It's like the second movie felt like every line had to be a joke, and I
I
just
do
didn't
agree.
like it.
I do agree that they did kind of take it overboard, but there are some and the only reason I'm okay with it is because some of the jokes that they did do with some of the characters, I'm not saying all of them, but some of them really do land, and I just
I
love
agree.
it.
If Suicide Squad he reins it in, and they are naturally jokey, but if it feels more like Guardians 1 to me, I'll be more on board. But the last thing I've had is Guardians 2, which I didn't enjoy as much.
I
Um,
just think that like let's not get a rinse repeat of a Chris Pratt character. Uh,
yes, I don't want that for a lead.
but I do think that if we got like a fun smuggler type story, um, let's say they did like I don't know, like a Dash Rendar or a Kyle Katarn that came in
See, I
there.
would rather him do a Jedi because it would be different. A smuggler is the Chris Pratt character to me. So if he did something more of a Jedi, what would really get me pumped is if he did like a Bane movie or a Revan movie. If he took one of these hard, serious Sith stories and he went a little darker, but we got his quirkiness and we got his creativity with the background and the cinematography and the aliens, that would be cool because his mind for that is so perfect.
Yes.
But I want to see him do something a little different than the jokiness. And I'm hoping Suicide Squad proves that to me. But like him doing a Revan movie would be so cool because Revan goes from good to bad, back and forth all the time, and he's
Right.
got a bit of humor to him. That would work for me more than anything.
Star Wars has never really like Star Wars has had funny jokes and funny moments, but it's never really had a whole lot of quirk to it, I felt.
Yes.
And so I mean if he was able to bring in just a little bit of that James Gunn quirk, but I know exactly where you're coming from of like
Yeah.
let's not take it over the top. But like if he was
Marvel and Star Wars humor are different.
it is, but I think that he could really kind of come in, take the Star Wars humor, tweak it a little bit, and make something
Yeah.
really, really enjoyable.
And we'll talk about this more when we actually watch Solo, but that was kind of the whole drama that they had with why can't I think of their names? Our boys from Spider-Verse and 21
Oh,
Jump Street.
I know.
Um,
It
uh,
wasn't brothers, but I know exact. Gosh, I know
I'm
who
gonna
exactly.
look it up.
It was the two. They were supposed to direct it.
They
And
did direct it. Phil Lord and Chris Miller. They
well,
directed like half of it is the report, and then there were reports
that's
they
right.
reshot a bunch. Because the big thing was is that Kathy, when she saw the takes, is what it sounds like. I remember when all this happened for like a year, I made sure like I had notes listed out of like different articles and links still so I could go back and look. But it sounds like when they got about halfway in, Alden came to Kathy and said, I feel I am not Han Solo, that I am too jokey, I am too over the top, and I am not Star Wars. And then she started kind of tuning into the dailies more and that they were too slapstick. And there was that quote that went viral where the report was is that Kathy said this is too Ace Ventura and not enough Star Wars. And that they reigned that when they brought in our why can't I think when they brought in Papa Ron to kind of calm the storm here,
Right.
that they tweaked a lot of the humor. And it's I believe the final report that somebody had said is that it's like 85% reshot, and there is about 20% that is some of those jokes and whatnot that are Phil Lord and Chris Miller because they got story credit, and if you reshoot the whole movie they wouldn't have. But anyway, and I we'll get into that deeper because I have a lot of takes on that. But like
It,
there is a line of humor in Star Wars that I don't think can be crossed with legacy. Maybe it can be crossed with somebody brand new, but I just am not ready for it. I don't think
see,
right now.
particularly with Solo, and I guess this is also kind of a criticism, just a faulting of also the sequel trilogies as a whole is I almost think it would have been better if either Ron or the who were the other
Phil Lord
uh
and Chris Miller.
yes, if Phil Lord and Chris Miller had they stuck with their vision or had Ron stuck with his vision and we had gone through the entire way with either one of those visions, I think that we probably would have wound up with a better
Yeah,
movie.
if they had just hired Ron from the start, it would have been probably, I think, a lot better. Because I believe even the writer Kasdan, who wrote Episode 5,
Right.
it created who Han really is. Oh, more than George. He I know complained a lot about the script, and there was a huge Twitter thread that him and his son came out with, or a Reddit thread years ago. I mean, it was huge of things that they did different, that they shouldn't have, things they didn't like. That'll be a fun episode. There's going to be that might be a 2 episode parter, because that'll be a fun one. But all right, we need to wrap up here. So any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I'm still super stoked about the future of Star Wars, and boy, if the decanonization happens, I won't be too upset. But
bittersweet. It'd be bittersweet.
I know some people are going to be really upset about that, but I mean, heck, I wasn't that too upset when the old extended canon for Star Wars was
I was happy. I was happy when they axed.
Okay. There's some good stuff out there.
I agree, and they're slowly kind of bringing it back, the good, but there is a lot of bad in the extended universe.
Oh man, it's way more of a shotgun effect. But I mean, this is why I'm excited for the High Republic, is that we're getting an incubation period that people can really kind of like marinate over all of these fun Star Wars ideas, just in general, and then. When we can finally get a couple of people to come in, look at some of those stories and be like, yes, let's do that one, turn it into a movie, turn it into a series. That's what needs to happen.
Yeah. So for another happy landing, we went on. This is why I love doing this. It just gets me pumped, gets me excited. We talk too much. It literally makes my week every week when we do this. Thank you guys if you are still somehow watching towards the end. Remember, this is every Saturday at 11. Thank you to our patrons. Those are going to flash. Go get Movie Meals merch, please, and thank you. And Tanner, thanks for coming on, being the first ever official guest host on Movie Meals. It's amazing. And we will see you guys next week.
Have another happy landing.